Recording now. All right. Hey, everybody. Inaugural class, Leadership and Academic Advising. So I wanted to say hello to everybody. So before we start, I just want to go around and I'll call your name and just say your name so everybody can remember, even though it says it on your screen. But just say good evening. So let's start with Lisa, since you were the first person on the call. Lisa, give us a howdy.
Hi guys, I'm Lisa Tolliver and I'm in Columbus, Ohio right now, so yep, excited.
Lisa! Thank you, Lisa. Julie, talk to us.
Good evening, I'm Julie Montgomery coming from Mason, Ohio. I'm an hour and a half south of Lisa.
All right, Ohio people in the house. Thank you, Julie. Chloe, talk to us.
Hey guys, I am Chloe Worse coming from Manhattan, Kansas.
So jealous.
Manhattan, Kansas, Chloe. And we have Lori. Lori, talk to us.
Hey, Lori Baker from Vineland, New Jersey. So.
Okay.
New Jersey. All right.
South Jersey.
South Jersey. I have some family in Jersey. Lori, thank you. Michelle, talk to us.
I'm Michelle. I'm in Corvallis, Oregon, which I'm sure none of you have ever heard of.
Oh,
I think I have. I've never been there.
Yeah,
It's a tiny little town.
The only thing I think of is Oregon is that old school game, Oregon Trail.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, I've never
Yeah,
been
we
there
played a lot of
before.
that.
Yet.
Lovely. It's pretty accurate rendition, actually.
Oh my gosh. So I'm Leticia Wilson. I'm your classmate. I'm in Corpus Christi, Texas, which is very South Texas. And I'm outside, so I'm very excited. So I'm going to bring up the agenda so everybody knows kind of how we're going to shift, because I want to make sure that we get everything covered. Can you see it? If you can see it, give me a thumbs up. Yay! Okay, so I love YouTube. I'm trying to limit my social media, but my guilty pleasure is YouTube still. So I have this game that I bought, and it's from this game. If you can see it, I feel like a YouTuber doing this. But if you go online, it's the Skin Deep channel. No, it's not burn, chicka, burn, burn. It's not inappropriate. It's just a way for you to like connect with people. And they have different series. So they have coworker series, they have couple series, they have friend series. So I've used this with a lot of the groups that I belong to, and it's just a fun game. So I have some of those questions to start us out. And the second bullet point is strategies. I can't remember who asked that question, but I wanted to make sure everybody's input was put on there. So some strategies, like share with each other on how we do here comes Billy! Okay. How we do assignments and how we keep up with the readings and discussion forums. And then I remember this is Chloe's question, and I was, oh, here comes Katie! And so the research pathways, I was already working on that PowerPoint. So that was like perfect timing, is trying to do a reflection wheel. I don't think that's a reflection wheel, but at least it puts in scope what everybody's research topic interest is to date. And then we have professional development opportunities. That was shamefully my own, because I'm curious to hear about any ones that you guys are attending maybe this summer. And then good news. I always like to leave a meeting with some good news, because this world is crazy. Or as our students would say, it's cray-cray out there. So I want us to kind of leave with something uplifting. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing. And Billy joined us. Billy, give us a hello. I'm recording this session, just letting you know, because there are some people that told me that they wouldn't be able to attend. So Billy, give us a shout out.
Hello,
give us your
everyone.
name and where you're from.
Sorry I'm late. I'm from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I was waiting for my tea to get warm, so selfish.
South Dakota!
Right?
Katie, talk to me.
Hello. How are you?
Good.
All right. So I wanted to be mindful of everybody's time. The thing that I did right before you guys joined, Billy and Katie, is we just went over the agenda that I sent out, because we just want to make sure we cover everything and then have time to chit chat. So the first thing is I have a couple of questions. So I'm going to ask random people, and I want everybody to have a chance. So I'm going to ask Katie this question. Can you see the question? Katie, I want you to read that question.
No, I can't see. Okay. How do you think I want to be perceived?
Now you answer that question. Go.
So how I think that you want me to be perceived.
Answer it for yourself. How do you want to be perceived?
I always strive to, I always want to feel like I'm perceived as being competent. And I think that's kind of like a double-edged sword, because you kind of are trying to meet your own expectations as well as other people's expectations. And so I always want to be perceived as being competent, just, in my day-to-day as well as like professionally, I think too. So I think that's one thing. And then I think I also like to be perceived as just being a warm-hearted, open person. And so I think that's important. And then also just to be perceived as like a family person, because family is kind of one of the most important things to me is my immediate family. And so I love that. So yeah.
Love it. So I am writing down answers because I'm like that. So Katie said she wants to come off as competent, warm-hearted, and family-oriented. Love it. Give her a hand clap, y'all. Yay. All right. So, Lori, this is your question. Go ahead and read out loud for us. We can't hear you. You're on mute. We can't hear you.
What's the greatest thing someone in your family did that surprised you? The space that I'm sitting in. Actually, I went away last summer. I said I wanted to set up a space before I took the first foundation course last fall, and I bought a desk, and then I left it here, and I went to visit a friend. And when I came home, this room was done. So, and that was my partner Deborah. So I was just like, oh wow. And she's like, you wanted a space, so I made you a space. So.
I'm clapping. Can you see my emoji? That is so awesome. So you said the most surprise that you got from family is buying the items for your office, but then coming back and it was already set up.
All done. Yeah. It's just like, yeah. She sent me away, said, go visit your best friend. And when I came home, this was done. So
that's love.
Yeah.
That's a love language, right?
Yeah.
Acts of service. I love languages, y'all. Okay. That's awesome. So I'm writing that down. Okay. Thank you for sharing, Lori. All right. Now, Billy's coming back. She must have got kicked out for some reason, but she's coming back, y'all. Okay. Chloe, this is you.
Huh. Read
out loud. Read out loud.
What do you always carry with you? Oh my gosh. I don't know. I'm thinking about it because of COVID. I'm like, usually I'm just in my jammies half the time. Oh my God. I usually always, I know this sounds crazy boring, but I usually always carry a book or my laptop in a briefcase all the time, which is weird. Yeah, I know. I have this leather briefcase. I'm a little bit of a older, kind of hippier person, so, but yes.
I actually want a briefcase. I really want one.
Yeah.
Do you remember with the 3 combinations on both sides where you would put the and it would pop? Yeah, so that's not geeky. Like, I want one too. So you said you always carry around a book or a laptop or a briefcase. I love it.
Well, both. Yeah, my briefcase has the book and the laptop usually in it, but yeah, no, I just kind of walk to school with it, so.
That's so cool. I love it. All right. Thank you for sharing, Chloe. Now
You're welcome, baby.
You muted.
Lisa. Here's your question.
Okay. What is an unspoken rule in your family and how do you feel about it? Oh, Jesus.
The plot thickens.
Well, I mean, I think it's I don't know. Unspoken rule in my family. So my family, not my kids and my husband, but my family, it's weird to talk about politics for some reason with everybody around. So it's an unspoken rule that when you have huge family gatherings, that's the one subject you don't talk about because you're there to enjoy each other. And it's like, yes, we understand you have different views, but Christmas is not the time kind of thing. So like, that's just an unspoken, hey, we don't bring it up at Christmas, Thanksgiving, whatever. Cause most of my family lives in Indiana. That's where I was born. It's my mom's side of the family. And so we only get to see them maybe once, twice a year because of holidays and things. So that's pretty much it. Yeah, I would say that.
So no politics when you get together.
Right.
When you get together once or twice a year, so we can keep it kosher, right?
Right.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, who hasn't shared yet? Michelle, you ready? Let me see. Ooh, that's kind of morbid. Let me go to another question. Let me go to my deck. I don't like that one. That was like too. Ooh, I like this one. You ready? Come on, Michelle, let's go.
Yeah, I'm ready. Oh God.
Read it out loud.
What does my style say about me? That's a pretty good question. I don't even know how to answer that because I work with all old men and I'm like one of the only females. And I typically wear like jeans and t-shirts and I have my head shaved and I have a lot of tattoos. So I don't know, my style is more like it's just me. Like,
it's just you. Authentically you.
I'm not trying to project any one thing to anybody. Like this is just who I am.
Oh, I love that.
And
Snap your fingers,
men.
y'all. Snap your fingers. Michelle's authentically her. I love it. Helena's so happy you're able to join us.
Let's see how long I can last. So
Okay. So I know your mom just left. So I hope her trip was good.
it was very, very short. But so that was it. She only could come in for a few hours. So.
But those few hours, I bet, were so like filling up your cup, right?
Yeah, my father had Alzheimer's, so she didn't want to leave. So she had to. He was with her caregiver, but she felt it was the first time she's left him alone ever, I think, since he started getting really sick. So.
Whoa. Okay, so we're playing the impressions game.
Okay.
So you're going to answer this question for yourself. And I'm going to put it up to the screen. Right?
I have to switch my camera around because I'm staring at the wrong place.
Let me see.
So I have to make sure I'm staring at the right camera. Okay.
No, that's too deep. That's too deep. Mm-hmm. Oh, this is a good one. This is kind of a spin-off of another question. You ready, Helena? Here you go.
I'm ready.
Read it out loud.
How do you think others describe you?
How do you think others describe you? Not me, but for you.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh God, I've just spent the last hour trying to do my performance evaluation for this year, which is just ridiculous that we're even doing them. But it's in this year I said to my boss, you really think we're doing these this year? But I think so I sort of been reflecting on that for the past hour. But I think my staff, at least, I think people would say that I act with integrity, that I'm fair and consistent, that I listen. People say negative things about how my back too, but for the most part, people give me positive feedback. So that's how it was described.
Awesome. So thank you for sharing. So you said integrity, that you're an active listener, and they probably say some other things, but that's their business, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Awesome. Did everybody go? Oh, Billy and Katie. Okay. Hold on. Let me get it out because I didn't like those other questions either.
Julie, right? Is it just me and Julie?
Julie, girl. It's Julie, girl.
Billy
And
and
Julie.
just Julie.
No, Billy and Julie.
Billy and Julie. Okay. Oh, this is a good one. Who am I going to give this to? I'm going to give this to Julie. You ready, Julie?
What's something you secretly wish people knew about you? Oh my God. Secret. I don't know. I don't have very many secrets. I'm pretty much an open book.
Is that your final answer?
Kinda. I'd say, well, one thing you guys don't know about me, because you've just met me, is in the last 3 years I've lost 70 pounds, which isn't a secret to my friends, but it would be to you. Wouldn't know that.
Wow.
So yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
So
70
Mm-hmm.
What did
Over
you?
over how long?
About 3 years. I turned 50 and finally did it. So
You're 50?
yeah, I'm
Girl, you
53.
50 and fine.
Well, thank you. No, I'm
Yes.
53. So
Even better.
yeah.
Oh,
So.
70 pounds over 3
Mhm.
years. Thank you for
Mhm.
sharing your
Thanks.
journey. Oh,
Yeah, it's been great.
oh,
So.
I love it.
Mhm.
All right. So we have Billy next, right? And that's
Mhm.
it. Okay. Mm, 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 mm. Ooh, I like this one. I like this one.
Jeez.
Billy, you ready?
I'm ready.
Read out loud.
What's a memory from your childhood you never want to forget? Wow.
Ooh, the plot thickens.
Never want to forget. That's such a strong context. I don't know. I have lots of positive childhood memories come to me. I'm a first generation college student, so I naturally I very much remember my both my parents had two jobs, and I often would go with them to their second job. I have a twin, so it was just my sister and I, but we were the same age. So I remember taking my dad dinner or going with my mom to clean apartments. Those memories stand out to me because I very much view them as leaders. I think as we sometimes can stereotype first generation parents, but they were progressive servant leaders who taught me a lot about initiative. So I very much cherish those memories. I have lots of other funny, silly things too, though. Like, my sister and I skipped school one day. That was a not so good choice, but still was a fun memory. Yeah.
I
gotta
love
keep the good one, the
that.
positive one.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. You said you're a first generation college student and your parents are leaders, servant leadership. Ooh, I love that. I love that. And that your parents are very progressive and that you remember going to work with your parents, taking food, to your parents for, I guess, dinner or lunch, but just being around them while they're at work. So you saw their with their work ethic. That is awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Billy,
Fond
I gotta say
memory.
something because that makes me feel so much better because I constantly have my kids at work with me and I'm always like, oh my God, they're gonna hate this. But like this makes me feel so much better about
What
it.
an inspiration you are. That's what I try
Your
to remind
truth.
myself. It was
No,
hard.
that's perfect.
Speak
It
your
is, yeah.
truth. So I'm going to do one for myself because I want to be, included in this. So this is my question. Just so you guys don't think I'm just saying some random question. I'm showing you for proof. So in 5 words, describe how you think others would perceive me. So joyful, energetic, empathetic, sometimes compassionate to a fault, and maybe adventurous. Yeah. So I would say that. All right. Here we go. Let's pull up the agenda. I hope you guys liked it. That was just a little icebreaker. So let me bring up the agenda again so we can kind of keep on track. So now the next item on the agenda is strategies for assignments, discussion forum, and reading. So who gave us that question? I can't remember who sent me that question. Julie. Oh, what was the name of that game? Okay, the name of that game was, like I said, it's not burn chicka burn burn. It's not some crazy, but the name sounds crazy. Skin Deep, and it's from a series on YouTube. And I bought all the editions they had because I'm a board gamer. So, all right, Julie, talk to us about your question.
Okay, so this is my first graduate class. I've not done foundation classes. I took a class at my college this past spring to build up my writing skills. But how are you? So, I haven't had a graduate class since 1998. So, how are you guys organizing yourselves? What's your strategy every day? My phone is going off all day with all these announcements, and I'm just kind of like, oh my goodness, this is just a lot. And then when Dr. Johnson talked about the discussion forum for the territories, I'm like, how did I miss that one? So I don't know. I'm just feeling a little like, wow, everything's coming. It's like a fire hose, like they said. Yeah. So how are you guys organizing? What's your strategy every day or every other day? How often are you working on stuff every day? I know that's a lot of questions. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No,
Actually,
no.
can I jump into Leticia here?
I'll jump after you, Chloe.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will say this, and this is more of a peace of mind. The territories question is not actually due until next week. I know everybody and what seems like their mother has already commented and posted. And I think at first when I saw that, I looked at it last week briefly, and I already saw maybe 20 or 30 posts on there, and I had that moment of overwhelming just anxiety. But also keep in mind that everybody's narrative and biography too is so different. A lot of us have kids, as we've already mentioned. I know I'm doing a couple other things that I am kind of working on, and so our lifestyles are just incredibly different. So I actually wouldn't be so caught up necessarily in what other people are doing to get ahead, because a lot of those doctoral students they're in just that one class. And so I would imagine that when they're getting on it and they're doing their readings, which there's no readings in the research class, hardly ever. I mean, I skimmed through the chapters already and it wasn't really an insightful read. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. And so, yeah, I would say don't get overwhelmed too much on that. I would say he's just establishing a deadline to just kind of keep the facilitation going. The big thing is really just taking time to research. What I would recommend as a strategy is really start talking to a lot of our professors already. I know I've already spoken with just a couple, just because I'm in close proximity with them, but I'm telling you right now, you really want to get to know what their research is. Because I've already found out very early in the game that there's some professors that I thought like, wow, like personality was awesome, very cool. But when I read their research, I was like, this is definitely not where I'm going. This is not where it's taking me. This is not where I'm going. And it sucked a little bit because I was like, dang it. Like I really liked you, as a person. But, and then there are a couple people, like for example, Dr. Kraft. She's a very silent kind of predator is kind of what I call her, but wow, that woman is crazy smart. And she knows a lot and she's really insightful and she's going to know a lot about ethics and law. And if you're really up in the policy making and the leadership roles, I know a lot of you guys hold administrative positions. She would be a really good person to really pick brain off of. So just kind of, I would say that is really start making the connection and scheduling just 30-minute Zoom sessions with the professors because they're pretty eager.
Okay. That's great.
I like that, Chloe. So you said research territories like pump the brakes, or if you're driving a stick shift, double clutch.
Well, do it before the due date. Do it before the due date because that is, 10% of our grade or whatever is what I would recommend. But don't get too overwhelmed. I would say pay attention more to the readings because he's going to group us into what our
research territories
are. And so really pay attention to that and, obviously comment as you please. But I wouldn't get crazy worried about what Dr. Johnson is assigning us. But that's just me. I'm a little more laid back. I don't know. So.
Well, it's a type A group, right? So, and I just feel like I'm late to the party this last 2 weeks, but.
Hakuna Matata. That means no worries. Who else had a comment? Somebody else had a comment. Michelle, come on, girl. Talk to us.
So I completed the master's degree like 3 years ago through K-State. So now I have like this plan of how I completed that and how it can translate into this program. But I made a second Outlook calendar that has all of the assignment due dates, all of the dates that the stuff gets posted the first time. So I have reminders on that. And then I put all the Zoom meetings on there as well. So it's like this separate thing, but I'm still getting notifications on it, which is nice. So it kind of reminds me. And then the one other thing that I've found to be super helpful is I try to do all of my book reading on Sundays. So for the next week. So everybody has put out usually the reading schedule for the whole term. And since Dan doesn't actually upload the other pieces, like the articles and stuff that he links us until that Monday, the Sunday before I take the book and I'll read every chapter that he's assigned. And I did that with my other classes, so I know these are my boring days. But that helps me because then on Monday when he posts the question that we're supposed to answer, I already have something going in my head of like, I know exactly what I want to do with this or like the direction that I want to go. And then I can pull back from the other stuff. But having that extra calendar too has been like super helpful to me.
Michelle, that's a golden nugget. I did not even think about that. Like, oh my goodness. And the book readings on Sunday. But that Outlook calendar, Outlook is my life.
It's like, because all of us are already on that all the time, right?
Yeah.
So
That's
just add another
awesome.
one.
Anybody else?
Thank
Lori,
you.
come
That's
on,
great.
talk.
I just want to second what Chloe said. So somebody came up in the cohort meeting and some people were having conversations with the faculty and I was like, I had Julie's sort of thing. I was like, oh, wow, I really should be doing this. And so, but I just had a fantastic meeting with Dr. Carroll today. And it went in this completely different direction than I thought it was going to. And then she's like, oh, but I know people over here that you should talk to. And it was really helpful to just have her make those connections and to be very affirming about the stuff that, that I'm interested in researching. So that was really helpful. And then I have one with Dr. Troxel on Thursday. So I just think that's really important, especially for those of us everybody but Chloe who's not there. It's the only way we're going to get to know the faculty is if we say, do this. And I will say just too that, having, been in a doctoral program a long time ago, and I walked away because there was no faculty contact, right? It was just, and it took forever to get really appointments with my advisor and all this stuff. And it's occurred to me in the time since that we get out of it what we ask for as well as what we put into it. It's what we ask for, and the people who got attention in my previous program, they demanded it. And I was like, oh, I respect your time. You're busy. I don't want to get in your space. And it was just like, no, that's what they're here for. And don't be afraid to ask for it. So
I love that. Thank you for sharing. Ask for what, like my grandmother used to say, my grandmother's birthday is today. She would have been 92. She passed away this time last year, but she would have said, a closed mouth doesn't get fed. So you better speak up.
And then just real quick, the strategy is that I was thinking about the first the meeting we had with when Dr. Troxel brought in the guest who had recently defended her dissertation, and she was talking about writing every day. And so I have started a journal that is really just notes. It's like an idea I thought of, an article somebody suggested, just something, and so every day there's just a little bit there that's about, it's an idea I was thinking about in the shower. I mean, but it's been helpful already to go back and look and see those things and be reminded of, and I think that'll be helpful. So I'm not a journal keeper. I've always thought I should be. And I'm like, this time I'm going to do it. So
that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Lori.
So when you, can I ask a question? So when you are going to these appointments, do you have questions written out, like a little informational interview when you're meeting with the instructor or professor, so you have an idea of kind of where you want to go with this or what you want to learn?
I had a couple prepared, and just so that they were there if I needed them. And so the first question was sort of about like what her current research was, and then we just sort of meandered from there. And then she asked me about one of my research interests, and we went, from there. So it really, it was helpful to have a couple of questions, but we didn't really use them, and it was fine. So
that's good.
And they're crazy. I think you'll find a lot, and I won't speak for all of the advising faculty in our cohort because I have not spoken personally with all of them, but I will say they are really relaxed. And so I've come to meetings, one of my first meetings, and I even stuttered a bit, questions just to the T. I just didn't know how it was, trying to be respectful of their time. And then Julie, I was walking one time. And I've spoken to Dr. Carroll several times just on a walk on my lunch break. And just asking her like, hey, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this? She's going through a lot emotionally right now with everything that's going on. And so I would even just suggest like getting to know them just as people too. It's a little less intimidating because then you can shoot a quick text or you can get on that level of email correspondence where you're like, hey, I need to run this by you. I'm very confused. What the heck? I don't know what's going on. Dr. Johnson scared me. And that's actually what I sent to Dr. Wilcox. I was like, listen, this guy's frightening me. He's pretty intense and he's all about educational leadership. What the heck's going on? And he was just like, okay, hey, 3 p.m. Zoom session, let's do this. And so they're usually pretty, I won't speak for all of them, but like I said, a lot of them are very laid back. I've just taken a Sunday stroll and have talking to them. I'm serious. So
That's good feedback, girl. Start with getting to know them as a person, just like what we do with our students, right? So now we have to practice what we preach. I know Helena said,
Well, I was going to say, I was back to Julie's point about the research territories. I absolutely thought it was due this week. So I don't know what I'm looking at wrong in the syllabus, but I mean, I'm looking at it right now. I just pulled up to see how did I miss that, but I absolutely thought it was due this week. So I don't know. I don't see a due date on it. So maybe I'm reading.
wait, is it the 22nd? Because I don't want to give ill advice.
Well, I don't see anything. I just see it doesn't. I don't see a due date. It says last post June 16th. So I said, how did I think it was due today? But I thought it was due this week.
I believe Dr. Johnson sent out an email last night after class, and he gave like what we should tackle in each week. Because I think he felt that from the cohort, like,
I think
what should I have completed?
There, you know, and to me, it's like it's up there, so it means we do it, right? And yeah, I didn't even think that. Yeah, it would have been, because I think my problem was that the first week when I went to his class, I was very good at expert organization. I did a little thing every night. I went on every day. I looked at the discussions. I did some readings. Last week was just insane for me at work. It's going to be insane for the next few weeks because we're in the middle of our registering students for classes for the fall. And so my office registers all 1,500 students for classes for the fall. And so we were doing that the last week, and now we're meeting with them about that. But so my goal is to do a little bit every night, because otherwise I spent all day Saturday and Sunday, obviously doing these posts I didn't have to do, but I did them. So now I'm ahead, which is good. But I think that's part of it for me too. I did buy when I went back to my office, we went back into our offices a couple weeks ago, and I picked up this big month-by-month wipe-off board that we never used. And I was going to put all my summer responsibilities on it, including all my work stuff when everything was color-coded. I haven't gotten around to doing that yet. But I think the visual helps me in terms of that, and just I'm trying to get organized. I'll admit, sometimes I'm in those meetings, everybody is like, and I'm thinking, am I just not being type A enough about this? Because I find I don't sometimes jump on that everybody else. So maybe it's because I'm older and I've waited this long. No, I'm 52, so I'm a little bit behind Julie there. And maybe as part of me is that just thinking if it comes, it comes. And I don't know, but I don't find myself being I imagine I will get that way, but I have not even thought about reaching out to faculty yet. It's not even crossed my mind. But I obviously, from what Chloe said and Lori, I need to start doing that.
That's a great suggestion, Helena, how you talked about you have a month-by-month calendar and it's dry erase and you need to see something visually like in your space.
I haven't done it yet. It's on my floor.
It's okay. The most important thing is that you said yet, so it's to come. So don't make yourself angst. So another thing I'm going to suggest, Julie, I turned off my notifications because I don't want to hear all the dinging because we have so many people in that, especially in our scholarly class. I don't want to hear that ding all the time. I turn off notifications on my phone too.
But you can set it up. I set it up for a daily digest. So one comes to my email once a day. If I want to read it, read it. If I don't want to read it, so I sign up for daily digest. It's great. Every day I got to go through it. I look through it. I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
Yep. Same here. I think I have it on weekly or something like that, but I get an email with everything just in one format. So I'm not feeling like, ooh, I got to check. Ooh, my phone just think, like,
I get enough email beeps. I don't need to get beeps about
So that's what's been keeping me sane.
Yeah. I was going to say, I knocked down the number of notifications that I was getting from Canvas just because it was like, I felt like they were coming constantly and it was overwhelming. So I think I did the same. I think I reduced it to weekly, or like maybe it's a day. I don't know. I have to look, but and to see what I did it for, but it helped a lot. And then also Canvas, I really like, there's a Canvas calendar. And so if you don't want to create a whole separate calendar, there's a Canvas calendar. And if you click in there, it'll show all your due dates for I think all your classes are combined, but then you can also click in there and add your own stuff in. So it can serve as like your own thing. So, cause I know we've like used that with our students a lot cause we have Canvas at our school. So that helps. I think that helps me to just like, cause I'm a visual person. I like to have that calendar, but I've gotten really bad at actually like having one. So, cause I've gotten so used to the electronic, like Outlook calendar and things like that for work. So I found that Canvas one is really kind of nice.
That is awesome. I didn't even know that about Canvas, and I've taught in Canvas. Jiminy crickets. All right, so we want to, did you get your cup full, Julie? I got my cup full too. Girl, that was a good question.
Am I the only one feeling this way? Or is it just
No,
me? Okay.
you are not
Okay,
alone. Okay.
No, I appreciate that. No, thank you. Those are all great tips. So I feel good. I've got good notes. So
That's real. All right, so the next question came from Chloe, our girl Chloe. She was talking about research pathways. And yes, I did take some time out of my work schedule, but I work hard, y'all. So I didn't feel guilty for doing this during work hours. So I went into Canvas course and I took everybody's discussion post and put it in a PowerPoint. So I did attach that to the agenda, but it's here. And I know it's not pretty, but I was just trying to put it all in one format so everybody saw what everybody's research interest was instead of looking through the 120 threads.
Thank you so much.
I literally had to just type in a name so it would come up, because otherwise I was like, it's going to be forever. So Laura, you want to talk to us about your research go back. Okay, Laura, you want to talk to us about your research interests? So as we find things, as we research our own topics, we can shoot you articles that deals with what your research interests are.
Sure. So, like I said, my research is primarily focused on advisor training and development and on student financial literacy. And so my concern is that students make decisions about majors, about careers that are predicated on their values, their beliefs, their understanding of money, but they don't actually do that consciously. And so, and they're having those discussions with advisors, and advisors don't know how to talk to them about that, and actually are afraid to talk to them about that. That's sort of a taboo subject, right? So, or it's something that's like, oh, you have to talk about that with financial aid. But it's not just the financial aid, it's like the implications, their economic implications for every major choice and every career choice. And there are economic implications that got you where you are in the first place. And none of that gets talked about in an advising relationship, or not, very rare. So what training would an advisor need to have to be able to have those conversations and to help students improve their literacy, their awareness, and then and understand how that informs their decision making moving forward.
All right, Lori, thank you for sharing. We have a financial literacy component in the grant that we just got, and I have a financial literacy, financial aid module in my course. So I'll definitely share that with you. And
That's
our faculty and professional advisors have to opt in right now, but I'm hopefully talking to administration, so everybody has to take the course. So I'll definitely shoot you an article, and I hope we all do that for everybody's.
Absolutely.
Helena, talk to us about yours. Helena, you there? Or did you have to jump off?
She's on mute.
I had to find it. My son was swearing in the background, so I had to, he's on the computer upstairs and he swears at his friends, 15 years old. What can you do? So I was saying that because I thought it was due the 20th, yes, last week I put it in there, and I may have put something different in, or I've thought more about it had I not. But I think I have several areas, but the one I chose right now to start thinking about, and this was kind of the question I asked, I think, last week, but I'm a little bit nervous about jumping into a territory right now, because part of me says I'm just starting this and I've thought about it, but I don't know if this is what I really want to spend a year to a year and a half doing, right? So it was a little bit, I think that's what kind of made me nervous, was do I have to jump into this right now? But I'm kind of hoping that, what if I do these 25 attitude bibliographies and it's not what I want to do anymore, but we'll see. But I'm looking mostly at the idea, it's probably broad right now, of how students choose a major, and then what forces them to a specific major. I did my paper for the application on STEM majors, but I'm interested in just general. I'm interested in looking at that. I'm also looking at it, I think I raised a couple other issues in terms of Well, I think there's some, one method says that you declare a major when you start your university, but I wonder how many 18-year-olds really know what they're doing and what message are they getting about why they choose a certain major. Like I think, Lori was talking about also, I think I would choose this because it's going to make me a lot of money. Our president has said at our meetings we've had recently is that, they're getting rid of some of our more traditional liberal arts majors that aren't as focused anymore. Because he's saying that's not going to be the thing of the past. So, I majored in history. Is that going to be even a thing in the future? I think students are saying right now they don't even understand why they have to take a history course, period. They took history in high school. So I'm just interested in exploring the idea of major choice, but then also then what happens, how do we help students select the right major? So if they are struggling in a certain major, they don't like it, how do we help them make that decision early on? So it's a variety of different things. So I think there are other areas too that I might sort of put out there maybe this week now that I know it's still open for the week, but I think that's what I'm doing right now. So
I think Michelle wants to add something.
Yeah, I was just going to tell you, Helena, that we have in my college at Oregon State, we created a discover your major or a major discovery tool that goes along with like kind of our online recruitment.
yeah.
So people can kind of stumble upon it and then answer a series of questions, and it'll direct them to something that is maybe more of interest to them in College of Forestry. But I feel like you could create a tool that was bigger than that and use that in the same kind of way to get some of your data, which would be super cool and very exciting.
Exactly. And also the idea of I think that came up in my research with majors. I mean, that's the idea. This idea of the future is that students come in and instead of saying, I'm going to be a biology major, they say, I'm going to major in the sciences.
Yeah, yes.
It gives them more of an opportunity to then spend the first couple of years exploring and then, I don't know. But I think there's going to be a lot more career-based majors than there are right now in the next 25 years.
I'd just like to jump in, Helena. You might want to look, I know a lot of Texas schools are doing what's called guided pathways. And so it's like that begin with the end in mind. And we have some career assessment tools that we use at our institution, Choices 360 and EMSI. So if you want to look up those two careers assessments, but it has to be something that's embedded in the curriculum. Like they have to do it in orientation, something like that, but it's worth going into some discovery. And some of the career exploratory assessments are also in the student success courses. So they have to take that course. It's coupled with the developmental ed, but that's just some tidbits. All right. Anybody else want to give Helena some gold nuggets? All right.
Actually, yeah, real quick.
Yeah.
I would actually talk to Dr. Wilcox about this a little bit more. I just got done taking his career development class, and there was a lot of, obviously we had to write a lot of papers on it, but just, we talk of tools and different resources and things like that aid in student support. And he is definitely, for career counseling, he's definitely the guru of it, and he knows a lot about it. And more specifically, he actually takes a more, well, we all kind of know how he is. He's a little bit more of a meditative type guy, but he really takes a different look and a different approach on guided pathways and what you need to do on a student level versus using technology, which is an interesting topic just because we're in the world of virtualization right now. And so he talks a lot about the career assisted guided pathways and what those resources really do, and the presence and the power of a career counseling figure, Helena. And I don't know if you wanted to look at that as it relates to career advising, but really he's very knowledgeable in that.
I just want to bring up one more thing. Chloe, thank you for that, for sharing which instructor is really tying into the career exploration. But we're supposed to get virtual reality glasses for career assessments. That's part of our grant, so I'll be more than willing to share with you. They want to show the students what the career looks like in everyday life, and so we're going to buy those virtual reality glasses for them. So I'm pretty excited about that. I thought VR was really futuristic, but it's happening now. So Audrey's not here with us.
You're muted.
Thank you. Oh, Audrey's not here with us tonight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I can move up the PowerPoint because I just did it really quickly so you can see the other portion of it before I bring it up again. So the next person, Anne's not here, so the next person is Michelle. So let me bring it up now that I've adjusted it. Give me a thumbs up if you can see it. It doesn't look too well. Okay, Michelle, just go ahead and talk to us, baby.
Okay, so mine's super random. I am going to study how to develop an online or a distance education program that are based in natural resources. So a forestry program, a natural resources program, or a wood science program. This is near and dear to my heart because there's this idea that forestry can only be taught in person. And I think that's not accurate at all. And so I'm super lucky because I've been working with our eCampus here, and they've created like some really rad simulations of wood samples and some forestry based things. So yeah, I'm just going to see like how it can be done, what schools have done it and made it work well, and then also how it affects careers for those students. So are they getting employed at the same rate as people that are in the in-person programs, and do employers look at a distance student? I did say rad because I say rad all the time. But how employers might look at a distance learning student and maybe have preconceived notions about their education. So I want to make sure that I address that as well. It's way outside of like this advising box.
No, it's not, because it has to do with like hands-on internship experience and employability, right? And
Yeah.
that's all a part of the pathways going from high school, community college to gainful employment. So you're like, okay, well, how does this experience translate? And are people like, do you really have the experience so I can hire you? Yeah, so that's real. So
yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. Let me go back to my list and see who's next. I don't know why it's not coming up, y'all. Okay, Katie.
Yes. So I'm not 100% sure on my area right now. So I work a lot with freshmen, transfers, and then our academic warning students. And so I don't know, I kind of have a couple different areas. So you know, as far as academic warning students, we just started doing an online component to our academic warning program. So I'm really kind of interested in seeing how that impacts things. Are you able to hear me and see me? Everybody kind of.
It was just like a freeze.
Froze for a minute, yeah.
Yeah.
Where did I cut out?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think it might be my internet, but yeah, so I'm interested in working with academic warning students and looking at online programs for them, and to just see how that impacts their ability to kind of get back on track and that type of thing. I'm also really, so I work at a private Catholic university. And so we are just kind of wrapping up a grant that we got that was stressing talking to students about vocation, and as in terms of vocation as in like what is God calling them to do type of vocation. And it was really interesting because by bringing, and we brought that into our first year experience course and had that conversation so we talked about career and career exploration and informational interviewing and that type of thing, but then we kind of brought it a little deeper. And it was interesting because my advising conversations following that lesson were really interesting because the students were bringing up how like they use their faith in their decision-making process. And so it was really interesting to kind of see that and it developed a lot deeper relationship with my students. And so I'm kind of, when I wrote my paper for my entrance, I actually researched student development theory on faith development theory. And I tied it into developmental advising and things like that. So I'm kind of interested in maybe going along that vein, but I'm just not really decided yet, you know, so I'm kind of exploring a couple different areas right now.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. I love the way that you said it's kind of purpose with the career, you know, purpose, God's given purpose, and aligning it with their career choices, specifically how it deals with a private institution. So
yeah, it's really interesting because we tied it into, you know, this is what your calling is as far as your profession, but what is your other calling in life? So are you called for married life, single life? Are you called to have children? Are you called to not have children? Are you called to adopt? You know, those, you know, so it's bringing this whole life conversation with the students. And so it really got them thinking on like a deeper level. So then they started connecting with us on a deeper level as
Wow,
advisors.
because of
So it
those
was really,
intentional questions.
yeah, it was very
That's
cool.
deep though. I
Yeah,
mean, do you want to have kids? Like, where do you want to work? Like,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah, but it was fantastic. So I'm kind of really interested in that, just because I just saw such a drastic change from one year to the next in those advising conversations. So I thought it was kind of an interesting area to pursue.
And I think sometimes with our students, they don't give us really thorough answers because we don't ask the right questions. So when we ask questions that dig a little bit deeper, then they like throw up on you. You know, they're like giving you all this information. So I think that's a good thing, because then it helps them make a more well-rounded, informed decision, you know?
Yep. Yep.
Thank you,
And hey,
Katie.
I just want to chime in too, just because I've done a lot of, not a lot, that's not fair to say. I've done some research on a lot of the religious studies and student development, Katie, and actually where I've pulled my sources is Anthrosource, and it's on the database. It's on one of our databases. I know it's not under specifically the College of Education, but I highly recommend looking at Anthrosource and typing in maybe religious development and advising as like those keywords, just because I've pulled a lot of resources like that. I mean, I work with an international professional population for my advising group. And so, I mean, faith and spirituality and religion I mean, Saudi Arabia, they go by a faith-based law. So I understand completely how it is and what you're dealing with. But yeah, maybe try Anthrosource as a database. I think you could find a lot of resource like that.
Thank you.
That's
great.
good. I love databases. I just emailed our librarian about a database that I'll share with you later. Thank you, Katie. Julie,
Katie,
you're next.
Oh, good. Katie, I have some NetView grants too at Augie. I don't know if that was your funding source, and I've gone to their conference every other year, so we can touch base. I know Duffy, Sunny Hansen, Brian Dyke, all three of those have talked about spirituality from a career perspective. I so love the vocation model. It just speaks to the multiplicity of our life roles and all that Donald Super championed. So go.
Yep, we had a NetView grant, so that's what we're just wrapping up. But yeah, it was really interesting to see how it got incorporated across like the whole, from like freshmen all the way up through graduate students. So
oh wow, we haven't done anything with graduate students.
Wow.
Oh yeah,
I teach a 1-credit vocation class for everybody.
I think we're I think we're a little bit smaller than you are though. So
awesome. My territory, and thank you. I'm glad to hear that I posted, because when I heard you all, I'm like, oh, did I do that one? I better go look. Yes, I did. I want to research alternative advising and parallel planning. I'm torn on which of the two I will choose. That's where I'm curious just how narrow the scope of our research needs to be, but I know for sure that will be my topic. I imagine, a couple of things. I might do interviews just to validate some of the model that I've already framed. Because I have a list of 34 students that I know have made involuntary transitions. They've been denied admission. And I'm sure it could go up even now with COVID. Or they failed to pass a licensure exam. So that's one idea. I would love, if it wasn't too complex, to research advisors and how their own personal bias or their own perceived stereotype threat could either more than likely delay when they introduce an alternative. So that could be either able-bodied, kind of where the scenario of the student, the only variable that changes is the demographic of the student, either race, ethnicity, or disability, maybe gender and STEM field, I don't know. Time would be the variable, the time in response. But that's, again, like you heard me talk last night, I can't recruit enough participants for that to where I'd need K-State's help. So that's what I know that's what I want to do. I've done a lot of reading about it already. In fact, I'm returning to those articles, and it's been such a valuable to have such a fresh perspective. I'm sure I'll look back at my past writing and research and be like, oh God, I totally overlooked that. I shouldn't have said that, but oh well.
That's awesome. The parallel planning is something that I talked about in the conference, right? and being able to really get to know the student first, and then introducing what that parallel plan may look like, and even our words that we use, right? So if I see any articles out there, does anybody have some feedback for Billy about parallel planning and where she can find research? But if you do, send it over to Billy. All right, Julie, talk to us.
Okay, so I don't really know for sure what I want to do. I wrote my paper on transfer students because I work a lot with transfer students because I'm at a community college, and I always feel like, where am I sending my students? And it's like this big void, and how are they acclimating to this new environment? So I love transfer students. I also am interested in students who are on, for us, academic intervention and academic probation. I feel like we don't really do anything for them until they're already dismissed and they're coming back. And then we all of a sudden want to throw services at them. So what can we do to stop that train before it goes off the tracks and they're in a hole with financial aid and all the other things that happen because they go below the 2.0 and go below the 67% pace. So I feel I have a lot of interest in those students. And then I was supposed to present at NACADA Region 5. My colleague and I were talking about, our presentation was called Piecing Together Career Advising and Academic Advising, because we've all been young academic advisors, and somebody brings a career question and you're like, I don't do career. So because we have to do so much now, I'm a generalist, so I cover everything: financial aid, registration, career advising, everything. So and we made this beautiful quilt. We were going to have people put, I'll have to send you a picture. It's beautiful. Anyway, so I'm also kind of interested in that too. So like, what training needs to be done so advisors feel more comfortable taking on that role of like switching gears in the middle of a advising appointment when we already don't have a lot of time. So
I would recommend, Julie, the guided pathways model again. And a lot of institutions, because I know you're coming from a 2-year institution, are doing articulation agreements. So 2+2, and talking to your articulation agreement specialist.
Yeah, we have a lot of those. Actually, we have a bunch with Franklin. Franklin's one of our partners. So we do have a lot of those. It's not so much the coursework I'm concerned about, is the actual shock of leaving their community college.
That's a term. Transfer shock. Yeah. Okay.
So so it's more of that. What handoff can you do that prepare them for what?
So maybe if they have a transfer student organization at the 4-year institution, do they get set up with that? Do they get set up with transfer scholarships, things like that? Like what? Okay. Yeah. Michelle, you had something to say.
Yeah, well, I'm weird, I think, in this one, but one of our recruitment strategies has been to partner with community colleges in Oregon to do these 2-and-2 programs. But I actually put together a program called Adopt a Community College. So I have faculty members from my department and a couple of the other departments that are assigned a community college to work specifically with students in programs that are applicable to ours. And so those students get to know somebody on the campus that they're going to. And we include our advising staff into these. So we travel to those schools whenever we can. Faculty members are expected to lecture at least twice a year in those classes.
Wow.
And so, yeah, something like that would be really interesting to explore too, from that transfer perspective of, if they have this model where there's somebody that they know and can go to at the new institution, like what difference does that make versus the ones that are like, bye, good luck. So yeah, it could be interesting.
So finding that sense of belonging with somebody.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, and it would increase their enrollment too, right? Because they're like, why aren't you sending more people? It's like, because we're kind of scared what you're doing with them after, we're just sending them to a black hole. I mean, I love the University of Cincinnati. I worked there. I think they do great things, but they're huge and they're siloed, and you get the runaround.
Yeah. And they're not used to that. And you want to set them up and give them, you're giving your young adults, I don't want to say kids, because they're not bad, they're not sheeps, but you're giving like a part of your family to the next step. And so you want to make sure that they're being taken care of. So.
But I'm also trying to stay open and just see what comes. And that's why talking to the faculty will be helpful, because I have a bad habit of picking things that there's no research and it's very hard. So
but that's
just trying to stay open.
You work with you work with students that are academically at risk, right?
Well, I work with all students, but I work with
What is
I
your
work with those
demographic?
students too. Pardon?
What is your demographic?
We're a community college. My campus here in Mason, we have more traditional age students. We have a lot of college credit plus students. Do you guys have that program in your state? So those are and I work with a lot of students who are going to go into healthcare, so they have to maintain a GPA. I mean, I work with a little bit of I have a very diverse caseload.
Huh. What is the racial identity?
In Mason, primarily white. In Dayton, primarily African American. It's more of a mix because our central campus is in Dayton, Ohio. So we're in a suburb of Cincinnati, essentially.
Oh, so maybe, I don't know, Leticia, if a guided pathway model would, because that's a traditional model.
No, I think guided pathways would help her with her literature as
Right.
far as looking up, but I also think the articulation agreements and the transfer guides and linking her to student organizations, and also, like you said, your program, Adopt a Community College. I've never heard of that. I love that idea.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I do
Just
too.
building relationships, so when the students do go, they have that one point person or somebody that knows the life of what it was as a 2-year student versus, having somebody to connect with. So I want to make sure to get to everybody because I'm a stickler for time and we're 1 minute over. So we have Lisa and Chloe. Whoever wants to go next. Lisa, go.
Mine, I was gonna say mine would be super short because unlike all of you guys, I really have absolutely no specific thing to do. I know that I love what I do, and so I'm sure there's something so Franklin University, our demographic is adults. And we get those people that go to community colleges after 2 years and come to finish their 4-year degree with us, or they're working adults, and we have the flexibility for them to go online to class and also keep up with their family. So we don't have the traditional age with us. And I specifically am a graduate and doctoral advisor. So I have the CEOs and CFOs and all of those people up in the higher level of everything. So I know that there has to be something there that isn't 100% explored with this demographic of students, but I am passionate about what I do. So I'm hoping that something comes out of and says, oh my goodness, that's it. But it hasn't happened yet. So
you're working with students just like yourself. I mean, CEOs and doctoral students. I would be curious to know about their credit for prior experience, because a lot of people don't want to go through a program and they already have 15, 20 years in the field. Like, what are they doing for credit for prior learning? So. Yeah,
I mean, career development, we do have it's called the Learning Exchange, to where we have the opportunity to, students can send like their resume or certain certifications and things, and the Learning Exchange then goes through them with the faculty to determine if there is any credit there. That's at all levels, not just grad and doctoral, it's undergrad too. A lot of the certificates like police or fire departments or people that work in those fields, we have for our criminal justice and public administration and things like that. So the Learning Exchange is definitely a resource that we do use for those things. I want to say that I think we have a lot of turnover with advisors, specifically at Franklin. And I think I would be more interested on that side of things to kind of figure out, well, why are people feeling like burned out, or why are they feeling like, hey, this is not for me anymore, after I think the last person that just left was there for 5 years and said, okay, I'm gone, kind of thing. And so that's essentially the turnover with that, especially in my office.
Usually every 5 years, or is it?
Essentially, like my office, I'm one of, for just the graduate advising, I'm one of 4 people, right? So for a long time, it was me and one other person, and each of us had over 800 students apiece advising. And so we're growing gradually, but there's definitely burnout with that, because there's a lot of students to do and it becomes a lot more transactional than I really want. So I think there's something on the advising side to kind of look at within the institution. And I think I'd be more interested in that versus like other things, but I don't know yet. Like I said, it just depends.
That's an awesome title, Advisor Burnett. That was one of the sessions at the conference too, by the way. So I can link you up with the people that presented on that, because I'm sure they have some literature, but that, ooh.
Mhm.
Dr. Lisa Rubin has written articles about that. So
Okay.
I encourage you, reach out and introduce yourself and she'll light the spark.
Okay, great. Thank you.
They also just started that that advising community for advisor wellness, and they have some good stuff there, and they've been doing some various presentations and things like that. So I would check that out too.
Great. Thank you.
Look at that. Look at that. Ah! Okay, Chloe.
Well, actually, I'll kind of make this a little bit shorter, just because I haven't fully digested, I think, what it is that I'm going to funnel down and research per se. But I work in a diversity center, and a lot of the research that I do for the diversity center works a lot with culturally responsive teaching, and so kind of bridging that gap as it correlates to advising. And when we get grants, because we apply for a lot of grants, Title III, international grants, and some domestic grants as it relates to teaching. My job as it is a graduate assistant is I actually kind of serve this purpose as a facilitative advisor for a lot of the international students. And so a lot of the research that I do revolves primarily around how it is that we audit our thinking, and what a school-centric model looks like in a population that is a very collectivist society. I mean, Katie, obviously the religious dimension, they are definitely, I mean, when we talk about Islam and we talk about faith-based law and we talk about gender binary, a lot of the student development models go into that and tie into that. And it's very different from a lot of the traditional based theories that we have currently. And right now I'm looking at a new framework that has just recently gotten attention in literature, and it's called the Accommodation Readiness Spiral. And if you guys haven't heard of that framework, it deals a lot with, if you guys are interested, I know I heard a lot about advising, online advising, and different curricular pathways and things like that. But if you guys are at all familiar with any of the equity or inclusion diversity and the committee of that nature, I highly recommend looking at that model. And the reason is because it talks a lot about our language, and then it ties into a lot, and I think I might need to link with Jose a little bit here, but the deficit thinking perspective, I know he talked a lot about that. But that's kind of what I'm looking at, is I'm looking at how do we integrate and how do we start with auditing our own thinking, and how do we correspond and interpret this. I'm a really big fan of Dr. Hagen. He is very philosophical, hermeneutics, if you guys have ever read his stuff, and we're going to get to it, I think, at the end of our modules here. He is a whiz at a lot of the interpretation and how it is that we interpret things, and how it is that we approach societies that are categorically different. And then how is it that we look at people through a lens of our socialization, and what that looks like in different striations of privilege. Just being as a white person, right? And speaking just honestly from that, that I've grown up with certain privileges, and I know just growing up in general, I've grown up knowing and being taught separation, and the us versus them, that type of categorization that framed my level of thinking, and then what that was like kind of growing up in a very different environment and then detaching myself from my parents. And so it's, yeah, that's kind of what, and that's a big concept. And so I'm having a hard time really funneling that. And so if you guys have any advice as to where I should start, I know I have this conceptualized framework, and I started filling out that map that Dr. Johnson gave us. And so I've filled in the two sections of the practical problem, which is that first column, and then that conceptual framework column. But you know what? I'm really struggling with what it is that I need to attack, because I think there's a lot going on, and then there's a lot going on in the world. You know what I mean? To really digest everything. I mean, when you talk about equity and you talk about having a critical conscience, and it's just so overwhelming, where do you start? How do you deal with the madness? And then how do you deal with students that are really angry? And they don't want to speak to you, or they don't necessarily think that you have their best interest. And so I deal with a lot of that actually at the Diversity Center. And so So yeah, do you guys have any advice for that? That's kind of where I'm at. No.
It's
I'm
such
like,
a
no.
huge topic. So I know I put something in the chat, college ready versus student ready, which is another broad topic, but then you can funnel down to what I'm really interested in is cultural humility and implicit biases, and maybe carving it down to a specific population of students. But everything that you just said is is needed. Like, research is needed, more research in every niche. So
And
whatever
meaning
you choose.
perspective. Leticia, if you're studying that, look up meaning perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And there's somebody that wrote that in the 1990s. I think his name is Mirezo or something like that. But if you're really looking at that, I would look up meaning perspective. That was really powerful. I sat through a conversation about that today. But yeah, I mean, I'm all over the place. And
You're allowed to be. We're in our first semester.
I know. But Dr. Troxel was like, figure it out, girl. Figure it out. I'm like, oh my God, I'm trying.
I think there's going to be a lot coming up. It's going to be interesting to see how our campuses react once we're back on. And I think there'll be a lot of information for research when you're ready to do it. Because I know the Chronicle, it's like every day there's an article about what's going to happen when our students get back together. So you may have a lot of information in the next year or so.
Or even sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Even sooner. So Chloe, that's a lot, but it's a lot of good stuff. So if I find any articles, I'll just send them to you and you can pick out what you need.
What are your guys' thought on a lot of the trauma that's going on? Because I know I've been dealing with a lot of students that are dealing with, I would say, much more. And we always talk about career counseling, right? Being separate from career advising, but then I'll refer to Dr. Howard on this. We're all counselors. I mean, whether we have the training or not, I think at some point in time, all of us are dealing with a lot of psychological trauma that a lot of people dealt with and carried their whole life. And then we're just lucky and fortunate to be in the space that people do share, which is even still a very small statistic. I mean, do you guys deal with a lot of psychosocial trauma? I know I can't be the only one. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. A lot.
I have a lot of veterans in my program too, and that is a whole different ballgame that I just it's a lot. They have a lot going on. So yeah, I think everybody is probably dealing with student burnout, faculty burnout, advising burnout, just like the whole thing right now. It's just, there's so much. God, Chloe, you could like jump on this and get some pretty sweet research. It'd be super cool.
Especially if we could jump on it right now. So
yeah.
I'm going to bring up my topic before we get off here because I want to be conscious of your time because now we're a little bit behind. So I'm going to bring it up. So diversity and inclusion, I'm kind of toiling around with 3 different topics. At the table is using the holistic approach in advising, but also fostering communication between faculty and students, because sometimes students are afraid to speak to faculty and they use you as a springboard, but also being at the table now that I'm in administration, making sure that my voice is heard, but then making sure I'm not being that angry brown girl. So that has a lot of implications too. The second one is something that I'm already doing, which is the advising certification and its impact on student persistence. So this training, like I said earlier, it's not mandatory, but how does this influence the relational component of advising for faculty and professional advisors alike? And in the advising certification, there is a module in there that talks about cultural humility. So it's not talking about just advising tools, but it's different practices. So how does that influence students staying? And the last one I'm toiling around with is it takes a village. The cross collaboration, because a lot of times it's like, well, the faculty, they're doing this, advisors are doing this, and everybody's pointing fingers. Well, how can we work collaboratively together to help the students get to where their end goal wants to be? And so that's been a big push, because when I was an advisor, boots on the ground, I was embedded in a department. I was a biology advisor in the natural science department. So it wasn't about I'm in a different building. The faculty saw what I did every day, and they valued it because they saw it hands on. And so we would have those conversations together. And now that I'm in a different role, they're still comfortable talking to me because they've seen the work that I do every day, because I was in the same area and in the same department, and I would constantly talk to them and bring them in. So it's not talking about what they're not doing, but it's how can we have shared goals? How can we give training? So I'm really big on not training, but professional development, because I want to emphasize we're enhancing a skill set that you already have. So how can we mesh all of that into your everyday practices so it's not just transactional? And so we're all working for the same goal. And it's really regardless of your title. Like Chloe was saying, we're all counselors, even though we don't have the LPC. You know, we're all teachers because advising is teaching. But how to mesh that all together so we all have the same definition of advising, you know? So I'm toiling around with those different things, but I'm thinking I'm going towards the certification and how it impacts advising, because we didn't have any existing prior to that. So if you guys have any ideas, please shoot them my way. But okay, let's end out with 3 good news stories that happened either in the last 2 weeks. Let's say that happened in June, because we're already in the 16th of June. So somebody, let's take 3 different things of good news. I'll start.
One.
I'll start.
Go.
Okay, I'll start. I'm so happy that conference went. I believe it went well. There was a lot of planning that went into that, and we had to pivot in March and make it virtual. So learning about Zoom breakout rooms and bringing in speakers, and people's technology uses are at various levels. So that whole process, it was after Friday at 3 o'clock, I was like, you know, so I'm happy that went well. And I'm so grateful to everybody that showed up in the cohort. Thank you for being there. I saw you. So thank you. But I'm happy that went well. So that's my good news.
You did a great job. It was really fun. I enjoyed it.
So my good one is that when all this COVID stuff started happening, my position got like kind of moved around, and I got added to another department. And so I basically doubled my workload, which was fine because it got me prepared for school, which was great. But the dean of our college sent out an email on Friday specifically thanking me to like the whole college of like what I've done. I know. And then he called me and he was like, and I'm sending you a bonus. And I was like, what now? So that was pretty rad because I was just like doing what I was told, but apparently it went well. So I'm pretty excited about that.
That is awesome. Show me the money and appreciation. I love it, Michelle. Somebody else, we need one more good news and then we're going to say bye-bye. The month of June, y'all, come on. Good news.
I mean, it's not school or job related, but we bought a new camper and took it out for the first time last weekend. So we went camping on like a beautiful weekend, and I absolutely loved it, enjoyed it, and we're gonna go again this weekend. So.
Ooh, it doesn't have to be related to work, girl. A new camper, and you were able to enjoy it. Mm-hmm. You went glamping. Would you consider that glamping?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you for being on the call. Thank you for sharing. I hope this gave us like release and talking through things that we've been thinking in our heads. So we'll have another call maybe sometime next month. But this month, I really need to get down to.
I appreciate you leading everything and kind of getting us all going and everything.
Agree.
Yeah, thank you for organizing.
We can rotate that. It doesn't always have to be you.
Yeah, exactly. We can trade it off, and we can, so.
So who wants to lead next meeting?
Lori, Billy, you guys were friends.
I don't want to call people out. I want to call people in. So I'm going to call people in. Who wants to do it next meeting?
I will do it if no one else will. But this means that everybody has to send me a baby picture. in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll do a thing
Okay.
at the beginning where we can guess who the baby picture is.
I love it.
That's cool.
I love it. So Michelle, you take the baton. You got it.
Got it.
Stick. I used to be a relay racer, so okay, y'all. Bye, everybody.
See you
Bye.
guys. Bye.